Hello, and thank you again for tuning in to another commentary of my video excerpt of one of the poems from my book, Speak to the Spirit, Inspirational and Insightful Poetry. All of these poems are Christian based. I'm assuming you probably know that thus far. And I'm also assuming that if you watch this video, you are watching it because you already watched the video excerpt that this video is about, which is called The Path to Love. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about The Path to Love, which again is a poem in my book. And if you haven't watched the video excerpt, hopefully after watching this video, you will be interested in watching it and maybe even purchasing or downloading a copy of my book. So again, I like to talk about when I wrote it. So the poem, The Path to Love, I wrote, I don't remember, but probably about, I would say maybe 11 or 12 years ago. And so I know that I wrote it after I got married. So that was one of the things that I can remember. And I've been married for about 14 years. So it's been within that time frame that I wrote this poem. And so the reason why I wrote it is because I always write my poems. They come from an idea that I have or a thought that I have, and I want to convey those things to other people. And so I kind of create a story, so to speak, in poetry form to get that message across. A lot of the times people read my stuff and they think it's specifically about me, which some of it could be or some of it is, but it also revolves around a kind of like a fictitious world that I've created to encompass an idea. And so that is, and all of my ideas kind of lead to lessons, and they kind of reveal deeper things going on beneath the surface of life, because that's how I think, actually. And so it comes through in my poetry. And so the poem, The Path to Love, which I'm looking at it here in my book, this is Speak to the Spirit, Inspirational and Insightful Poetry. And I'm looking at the poem here now so I can give you a very good commentary of it. Because I have a lot of poems in my head, so I want to make sure I'm remembering it correctly. And so The Path to Love is basically about people understanding that love is not this exactly what we think it is. Like, we have these very superficial and often selfish perceptions of love. We just think about what we want, what we like, and then we bring another person into that, and we kind of make this assumption that they want the same things that we want and they like the same things that we like, which is usually not the case. And so, but a feeling in and of itself, because some people have a bad idea, like love is just a feeling. Actually, love is a spirit. Love is an energy, and it does things. It heals things. It brings things together. It completes things. And so I'm sure it does much more things than that, which this video is not about what love does. So I don't want to go into that. But love is actually a power. And so when you just have the feeling of love, that is incomplete. First of all, our definitions of love are usually incomplete. And then if you just base it on a feeling, that's just more incompleteness. But when love is, the feeling is matched with an action, it almost goes back to the scripture that talks about faith without works being dead. So if you love someone and there's no action behind that, then that's actually not the fulfillment of love. And so it has to be fulfilled, because God is all about purpose and he's all about doing. And so if you have these feelings and ideas or even faith, but there's no action to it to bring that thing to fruition and complete the task that it was set out to do, then it is pointless. It is dead. And so we often base love on just feeling. And then we do put actions to it sometimes, but they're usually based on, again, selfish and erroneous feelings that are not able to withstand the test that love has to go through in order to be brought to fruition, to be manifested fully. And so that's what I wanted to convey in this story, is that, yes, you're in a relationship, you're married, you might really, really love the person, and especially in the beginning. Of course, we all know that relationships are very, very flowery in the beginning. You see the person as the best person on the planet, but over time that starts to change. And instead of love kind of retracting in those situations, real love, the love that comes from God, the love that heals, the love that mends, perseveres through that. And when it perseveres through that, it is able to manifest what love really looks like in all these different circumstances. That it's not about something that just happens when stuff is good and you're so in love with the person, or even the person is returning love to you, because love, you can love somebody and that love not be returned. And so, which we know. So it talks about, so I'll read a few lines from the poem. So the first one goes, broken bridges can't be fixed if no one is willing to work. So if you have a relationship and it's going through some tough times, which is bound to happen, it will happen, and bridges get burned. I've seen it a million times. It can't be fixed if no one is willing to work. Like, love is not just about feeling, but persevering again through those difficult times. But you have to put the work in order to see that come to pass. And it says true love can't be realized if no one is willing to hurt. And so if you are in a relationship and to push forward, you kind of have to endure some pains. A lot of people retract. They don't want to feel that discomfort. They don't want to be hurt, and they kind of guard their heart more than they are guarding the relationship. And so they retract, they guard themselves, and they don't want to put themselves in a vulnerable position to feel bad in order to get to the other side of the problem. And so it says true love can't be realized if you're not willing to hurt. Like, to some degree, you kind of have to be willing to hurt and go through the fire with the person that you love. And again, in order to get to the other side of the fruition of what love really is. And then I'm going to go skip down a couple of lines, and it says, strength can't be realized if no one is willing to push. If don't understand the strength that you have, because a lot of times we go through stuff in relationships and we feel like, I can't do this. This is too much. I can't do this. But if you push, you'll see that you're a lot stronger than what you think. And God knows that about us. It reminds me of the story in the Old Testament. I forgot the guy's name, but he just saw himself as very, very weak, and God called him a mighty man of valor. But if you never push, and by him following through on what God told him to do, he started to see what God saw in him. And so you can say, I can't deal with this. This is too much. But you will actually see that you're stronger than what you think, but you have to be willing to push, and you won't realize that if you don't push. And so another big thing that I wanted to point out, it says true love can't be earned if no one knows the mission. I'm sorry, triumph can't be earned if no one knows the mission. And so again, we go back to our ideas of marriage. So a lot of times we get married, we feel like it's for somebody to love us, for us to have companionship and things like that. But actually in the spiritual realm, getting married is an assignment. Getting married is like you accepting an assignment from God to use this marriage in order to manifest what God wants you to manifest in the earth through the marriage. And so you can never triumph. You can never overcome. You can never get to that place of actually manifesting what God intended for your marriage to be if you don't even know what the mission is. And we just push forward because we want what we want. We don't understand God's purpose for it. And so you can't achieve something if you don't have a goal that you're getting to. Like, you can't go to school for a degree if you don't have an idea what you're studying, at the degree you're trying to get. So you have to have that goal, because that goal lets you know where you are in comparison to that goal. And then you can work from there, knowing where you are and what you need to do. But if you don't know the mission for your marriage, you're never going to overcome those specific obstacles that get in the way of you reaching it. So triumph can be earned if no one knows the mission. And so you have to ask God and understand what the mission for your marriage is. Another thing, if you watched the video excerpt or read the poem in the book, you will notice that in each line I says, if no one is willing, if no one is willing, if no one is willing, if no one is willing. And so that's kind of brought into the end of the story, where you can see that I say, for marriage to work, it's true that it takes two, but it only takes one for God to work through. And I say that because a lot of the time people hold back on doing stuff on the condition that their partner does something. So yeah, I'll open my heart to him if he does this first, or I'll do this for her if she does this first. And it's like we have to look past those conditional terms of what we're willing to invest into the marriage, if the other person is doing or not doing. Like, we have to still do those things whether the other person is doing or not. So if you have two people in a marriage and neither one is willing to hurt, again, the fruition of love cannot happen. If you have two people in a marriage and no one's willing to push, then the fruition of love cannot, the completion of love cannot happen. And so, but what I'm trying to emphasize here at the end of the poem is that it does take two, and that's very, very true. But God can work through one person. God can work through the willing heart of the person in the marriage that's ready to do the hard work. That doesn't necessarily mean the marriage is going to survive, but it does mean you gave it your all. And if it does fail, it's not on you, and God will bless you and he will honor all the work that you put in there. But if you allow yourself to be used by God and stop putting up all these barriers for God, that God is saying, hey, I want you to do this, and you say, no, I don't want to do that, that's going to hurt. Or I want you to do this, and you say, no, I don't want to do that, I'm not strong enough, But if you allow yourself to be the person that God uses in the marriage, even if your other partner is unwilling, God may very well use you to mend that thing and inspire those same actions or growth in the marriage that you didn't think was possible. And so that is it for my commentary for the path to love. You guys, just remember, the path to love is not always an easy one, but if you make it, go through all those steps and you go through all that struggle and heartache, and you get to the other side of it with your marriage intact and God was the head of it, oh my goodness, it is such a blessing, and you will have a deeper understanding about what love actually means. All right, so thank you so much for tuning into this one. And again, I hope you watch the other ones and buy a copy of the book. And please leave me feedback, commentary, reviews, things like that. I always like to hear people's impressions or how my poetry helped or maybe didn't help them. So thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Check out the other videos. Bye.